welcome back. It's been a while, hasn't it? I've got a confession to make. I tidied up my bedroom, which is also the recording studio, and I tidied up the loft cupboard, and while I was doing that, the floor in here was an absolute tip. I couldn't even get to this chair that I read in. Maybe if I'd done a Corbett flip, but I can't do them, and I think they're illegal. So I'm afraid it's been a long time, but I'm back now. And in case you've forgotten, I was reading you 5 Dolls in a House by Helen Clare, and we're up to chapter 4, which is called Baths. There's a picture here of them trying to get a bath in through the doll's house door. Doesn't look like it's going too well, does it? Elizabeth had been out for tea with one of her friends, and so had not been able to visit Vanessa and her household for 2 days. The measles adventure had made her decide to give them a day in which to air the place. However, going out for tea had been rather fortunate for Elizabeth, for amongst her friends' things she had found, to her great delight, an old bath, just the size for the people in the doll's house. It was rather dirty, and the paint was chipped, but this made it all the easier to swap it. Elizabeth gave her friend a ball and brought home the old bath instead. She had the sense to put the bath right outside the door, but she never realised for 1 minute how difficult it was going to be to get it in.
Now perhaps I can have the old one. It's time I had a bath up here. I've nowhere to wash, no how, and with all them germs or smuts or whatever, I need something, said the monkey from the roof.
But you can't have a bath up there, you would flood the house. Anyway, the old bath's very small, you wouldn't be able to get in it.
I could put my toes in and paddle 'em, or else I could turn it up and sit on it. It's time I had something up here, even if it's only a bath.
You certainly couldn't paddle, because how would you get any water?
Rainwater, of course. That's how I get so wet, with rainwater.
But you ridiculous monkey. You're not in the open air and you don't get wet.
Not in the open air and living on top of an house? That's all you know about it, so there. And I gets as wet as wet.
And he turned his back on Elizabeth as she knocked on the door.
Come in, dear Mrs. Small. It's us, and we're all alone.
The door was flung open, and Jane, Amanda... Oh, I got the wrong voice, didn't I? I'm going to try that again.
Come in, dear Mrs. Small. It's us, and we're all alone.
The door was flung open, and Jane, Amanda, Lupin, and Jacqueline came crowding out in a bunch to see Elizabeth. What do you mean all alone? You look as together as you possibly could be, said Elizabeth. And then, of course, she realised Vanessa wasn't there.
What we mean is that Vanessa has gone out. She got into a temper due to the measles, we think, and she went out to get some fresh air, said Amanda. If I'd have known they was all alone, I'd have gone to see 'em like anything, I would, said the monkey. I didn't see her go out, the old battle-axe.
All 4 dolls screamed, but Elizabeth noticed that Amanda waved at the monkey before she ran into the hall. Look what I've brought you, a new bath. At least, if not a new one, a big enough one, you know, said Elizabeth.
Oh, but how lovely,
said Jacqueline, who, as a paying guest, had been told there was a bath and had been very disappointed not to be able to get into it.
How very genteel.
Oh, you mustn't say that if you want to learn good English, Jacqueline, began Elizabeth.
But Vanessa says it.
Yes, I know, but what she means, I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a silly word. Well, are you pleased with the bath?
It's beautifully big,
said Lupin.
And it's got taps, said Jane. Oh, it's lovely, said Amanda, but it needs some paint like everything else.
What shall we do first, paint it or get it in? You get the bath in while I go and find some paint, said Elizabeth. It's not very heavy, just rather large. And Elizabeth ran off towards her cupboard to find a little glass jar of white paint that her father had given her after painting a poster. It was not the kind you normally do baths with, but it was all she had. She remembered to take some brushes, and she had to roll the jar along the floor as it was too heavy to lift. When she got back to the house again, she found Jane inside the porch holding one end of the bath, Jacqueline and Lupin outside the porch holding the other, and Amanda, poor Amanda, who had been holding the middle, was stuck fast in the doorway, jammed in by the bath itself.
Oh, help, I am so squashed, and I can't get out at all,
squealed Amanda.
Now,
said Lupin and Jacqueline, and they both pushed while Jane pulled. "It's no good doing that," said Elizabeth, "and you'll hurt Amanda. The wide end will never go through that door. Can you get it out again?" It was some time before they could even do this, and poor Amanda was quite flattened when they got her free.
"I told them not to try that door because I could see it was too small, but they would do it, the sillies," said the monkey, who was watching everything with great interest. "You'd better let me have that bath up here and put it up with the old one. You'll never get that one in, I knows."
"Oh, yes, we shall. We'll take it around the back. Come along, everyone." And they all put a hand on the bath and trotted round the house. But the back door was no better. They pushed and shoved and tipped and struggled until they were quite exhausted. Lupin thought she would be able to do it better without her dress, so she took it off and tried again in the blue vest, but it didn't make as much difference as she'd hoped. "We'll think of a way to get it in somehow. Let's paint it first anyway," said Elizabeth. So they carried the jar of paint round, got buckets of water, and began. They took a brush each and painted the bath white all over several times. It was difficult that the brush handles were so long. "Quick, quick, will Vanessa come back?" squeaked Jacqueline, jumping from toe to toe. She was doing the painting in her petticoat, and Elizabeth could still see the red marks on her arms where she had had measles. When it was done, they sat down and tried to think of a way to get it in. "Do you want to know how to get the bath in?" said the monkey. "'Cause I'll tell you. I've thought it out while you were painting, I have." "Oh, how kind of you. Yes, do tell us," said Elizabeth. "Well, if you was to tie a piece of rope around the bath and give me the end, I'd pull it up to this front window and we'd get it in there." "Not my window!" screamed Jacqueline.
"It's a good big window, and it's the only way," said Amanda.
"But will it ever go through Jacqueline's door?" said Jane anxiously. She did not like to think of the bath stuck in the paying guest's room forever. "Yes, because that wall can take down if we like, and of course I could arrange to have the front taken in and get it out that way, you know," said Elizabeth.
"Oh, no, 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 no. Let's do it the way the monkey says."
"We shall have to cut the window out from inside," explained Elizabeth. "I knew these windows weren't real glass all the time, because they bend when you lean against them. Vanessa would say that new ones were expected," explained Jane. "Now, Jane and Amanda, you go up and get a knife and cut the window out from upstairs, while I get a piece of rope." "Very strong it ought to be," warned the monkey, "for if I were to drop that there bath on anyone, it would be good-bye." Elizabeth fetched her dressing-gown cord. It looked just like a rope, and the monkey didn't know the difference. But tying a dressing-gown cord around a bath without the bath falling out is very difficult, especially when the bath is still wet. At last they did it like a parcel. When it was done, they all trotted round to the front with the bath again. How to get the end to the monkey was a dreadful problem. Elizabeth bent down and Lupin climbed on her back. Jacqueline passed Lupin the end, and Lupin passed it to Jane, who leant out of the window, while Amanda held on to her.
Do be careful, Jane," said Lupin. "It's so very easy to fall out of a window when there's nothing there. I have done it myself."
But Jane had got the end, and the monkey lay on his tummy and caught it as she threw it up. "Hooray!" shouted everybody.
"Now I goes and ties it to the chimney," said the monkey, "and then I pulls, and you all gets ready to take it in at the window."
The three outside waited until they saw the bath began to leave the ground, and then they ran up the stairs to join the others. The bath came swinging and dangling up, jerk, jerk, higher and higher. "I hope he doesn't break the downstairs windows," said Jane anxiously.
"Or knock the wall in," said Lupin, "because a wall's a wall, even if it does take out and let you through."
"Or drop it on Vanessa. She'd never speak to us again, you know," said Amanda, laughing. Elizabeth was afraid this was only too true, for the bath was enough to squash Vanessa. And there was Vanessa coming up to the door, her feather bobbing jauntily and her fringe very frizzed. The bath lurched and swayed, and bump it went against the wall, carrying away Vanessa's hat by its feather. There's a picture of them there, trying to get it in at the upstairs window.
"My hat! My feather! Burglars! Cat burglars! Bath burglars!" shrieked Vanessa. "Where are you all? Someone's stealing the bath. I can't go out without something happening."
And she ran in at the door and up the stairs. "It's all right, Vanessa. I've bought you a new bath, that's all. Come and help lift it in. It was the only way. The monkey's helping us."
Oh, Mrs. Small, I wouldn't trust him an inch, you know, said Vanessa breathlessly. Never mind that now. Here it comes. Quick, help everyone. Here it is. Hooray! And the bath was seized and hauled in at the window. A very good big bath. How very genteel, said Vanessa. But I hope, she went on in a loud whisper, I hope you're not thinking of leaving it in the paying guest room, Mrs. Small. No, of course not. Now, where's that old bath? You unties the new bath and you ties on the old one, and I have it up here, 'cause I deserves it since I fought it out, said the monkey's voice. It's quite true. The monkey does deserve it, said Jane. But what can he want with the bath up there? I won't have monkeys bathing on my roof, that I won't. It's too small for him to bath in, and anyway, he's got no water, so you needn't worry, Vanessa, said Elizabeth. And they tied on the old bath, and the monkey hauled it up, and he threw the cord down again, and Vanessa fastened it to the foot of Jacqueline's bed. We have always needed a fire escape, Mrs. Small, and this will do excellently. It's the right colour too, red, though I must say it does seem to have a good deal of white about it. Wet white. Oh dear, I'm afraid that's the paint, but it will soon dry, Vanessa, because it's a quick-drying kind. My father said so. Is your father in the paint trade, then, Mrs. Small? And fancy your having a father at your age. Of course I've got a father. And he's not in the paint trade, although it's a very good trade to be in, I should think. Elizabeth said this very firmly because she was sure Vanessa would consider the paint trade not genteel enough. They had moved Jacqueline's wall. The walls in this house are a little thin, you know, Mrs. Small, which is disturbing when people snore, like Amanda, said Vanessa. And there was the bath in the bathroom, looking white and beautiful. And then they all went downstairs. I accidentally read a bit of story in Vanessa's voice there. I'll do that again. And there was the bath in the bathroom, looking white and beautiful. Then they all went downstairs. We deserve a cup of tea, that we do, for getting the bath in, said Vanessa, who had found her hat a little whitened and put it on again. So Amanda made the tea and brought the cake. Just as Elizabeth was thinking she must go, there was a piercing scream from upstairs, and then a patter and a choke, and in rushed a completely white Jane. A ghost! Shrieked Jacqueline. Nonsense, it's Jane, but what has she been doing? Answer at once, Jane, said Vanessa sternly. But there was no need for Jane to answer. It was quite easy to see what had happened. She had been so eager to have the first bath, she was a very clean doll, that she had filled it up with water and jumped in. All the beautiful new white paint, which was quite the wrong kind for baths, had floated off into the water and made a thick white puddle instead of a bath. It was drying all over Jane in cakes. Oh, poor Jane! I'm afraid it was the wrong kind of paint, Vanessa. Jane will brush off when she's dry, you'll see, said Elizabeth. Meanwhile, she's making puddles all over the floor. You must go and stand outside, Jane. I won't have it. She can't. She'll get cold, and it won't hurt the floor. I must go now. I'm so sorry about Jane. Well, it can't be helped. Goodbye, dear Mrs. Small. Come again soon, said Vanessa, somewhat crossly. Goodbye, goodbye, said the others. As Elizabeth peered through the front window, she saw Lupin, Amanda, and Jacqueline all dabbing Jane with anything they could find, while Vanessa mopped up the floor. There was nothing to be seen of the monkey at all. He had stood his bath up on end on the flat part of the roof between the gables and was evidently enjoying being alone. See you later for the DVD extras, and see you tomorrow for another chapter. Bye-bye.